Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm Nick McDaniel. He's Myron Fancher. How the heck are you, buddy?
You husky.
Yeah, I am. I am. I ain't gonna lie to you. I am.
What's up?
Look, man. Look, this is a crazy week, man. I can't tell you the absolute chaos in my life this week. By the way, it includes podcast stuff. I don't know if you caught yesterday's episode yet. We have unveiled at this point. If you're a Patreon member and you're listening to us, you would have seen that Bryce Cannon was the special guest host and will be the guest host for June on the Tapped In Indie podcast. If you're a regular listener, yeah, that episode came out yesterday, so you'd still be already should be aware that Bryce Cannon was the special guest host for the month of June on the Tapped In Indie podcast. But I obviously led into the big part there is if you'd have known, if you were a Patreon member, patreon.com/tappedoutpod, you would have known even earlier than everybody else because you would have gotten the show early. It wasn't in the show notes. Didn't disclose that out, but yeah, it was available for you early if you're on the $5 tier or higher. But of course, we always tell you, for the $10 levels or higher, you get the digital comic collectible every month. But at the $25 level, you get the physical autographed 8.5 by 11 every month they go out. And I did announce on the Tapped In show because there are 2 this month. 2 will go out to everybody that's at the $25. By the way, that means a $25 membership will be less than what you would pay for I promise you what you would pay for these people's autograph at any wrestling show.
Oh gosh,
One is an indie, is a I think a huge potential, indie star, and then another guy that we're doing is actually a nationally signed talent that we're going to have, and that one will be included as well. So you will get 2 this month. So because I announced it kind of late in the game, I said, hey, I'm going to give you until June the 7th to be a $25 paid member. The 8th is like, hey, after the 8th is too late because usually by the 15th to the 17th, I mail those out. So by June the 7th, you got to be signed up already as a paid $25 member, not a trial member, not as a gifted member, none of that. It's you paid $25 member, and you will get those this month. As they get mailed out in the middle. Whew, that was a mouthful.
Well, folks, if you don't follow the Tapped Out Collectibles business, Nick has like the best rating for shipping on all that stuff. So I can only imagine how quickly he's going to get this out to our paying members. How is the Tapped Out Collectibles department working?
It's doing really good, dude. I had some great feedback. Shipped out a few last week. It's usually crazy. I found out I shipped some, and literally they got them the next day. And they were in South Georgia, so they were really happy they had them for the weekend, which was awesome. You probably saw them; they shared them. Last week's Skrill of the Great. Dude, I was a huge fan of that one with the race car, the helicopter. That was really cool. AJ Black, he picked up some as well last week, so that would be pretty cool. And I've got a couple to deliver this week that I've got there. Literally, I'm staring at them at a table outside the office. I can see them. I got to deliver them. Yeah. To our pal Sal. He's got to pick up some stuff. He's got some collectible cards that he's going to have this coming up weekend. So absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I get to see Sal a couple of times probably. Southern Honor and Southern Fried.
Yeah, I will miss, we discussed this a little bit on the Tapped In show. I will miss all Friday shows. I've got, anyway, some stuff that'll keep me out of pocket on but my plan as of right now, knocking on some wood, as I will be at Shindig on Saturday. That's the plan as of right now. So
I love Shindig. I love Shindig week. It's like the Royal Rumble of the South for me. Or sorry, no, WrestleMania of the South. Rumblejack is the Royal Rumble of the South.
There you go. But listen, you WrestleMania, right? Let's dive right into it because look, the reason by the way, you want to be a Patreon member, there's something in the notes that we put in there originally as an idea for the show, and I'm not taking it out. If you're a paying member, they're going to be in there for you to check out, and we may tease what they are later in the show. But after reading over and show prepping and getting ready, I'm like, hey, there's no way we get to this.
I went into a lot of show prep on those topics, and folks, I can tell you, they're 100% right. They are excellent. So get the notes, and if you don't like them, tell me about it.
By the way, huge announcement. We're going to tease it at the end of the show, maybe in the middle of the show. You got to listen to the whole show. That's what I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to announce it at. But there is a big announcement. I mean, it's a pretty. Don't you? Would you say this is a big announcement that I teased about? We talked about it before the show. I think it's a big deal. So anyway, let's jump into some of the hot news. WrestleMania 42. You know, we discussed it a little bit last week that they're not going to New Orleans, and we just all heard, hey, they're going to Vegas.
Oh, I was all set for Vegas. I was like, Vegas did such a great job. It's no brainer for them. Go back to Vegas, and then you tell me this.
Now we're not 100% certain.
This was a shock to me. Reading the notes, this was a shock to me.
Yeah, look, we're starting to hear things like Vegas is the front runner. Vegas is the carrot. Vegas is the bluff. And I'm like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah. There are cities that are still, look, I've heard Indianapolis maybe. I've heard London. I've heard, insert city. The one that Saudi Arabia has been mentioned as well. I think we're going to go, let's just go with the ones that we've heard. We're going to bump Vegas all the way to the end, and we're going to start with London. I think there's a massive obstacle. We discussed it a little bit off, air. What's the big obstacle for London?
They're not going to pay what it takes to get this over there. It just doesn't matter for them. I mean, when AEW goes over there, AEW pays for the building. They pay their facilities fees. WE is going to ask for free facility fees, all this money, and you just got to give us all this stuff. I don't know if England is ready to do that.
I don't think they are. That's the biggest obstacle, I think, that I don't know that they... Do they see the value in it that U.S. cities see in it? I think that might be the biggest wall for London. I hope they do. Talent
would have to get passports too, so it works the pre Mania shows. I don't think it's going to happen.
I find it hard to believe they're going to put a WrestleMania anywhere before they do. Like, I always think like a Rumble or a SummerSlam or Survivor Series.
Yeah.
Just let's see. Problem is, they get tons of money for those too. We're finding out they're getting site fees for Money in the Bank, for crying out loud.
But when they go over to Saudi Arabia, it has to be the greatest Royal Rumble. They can't just have a regular Royal Rumble. They give them that. We're going to have the greatest WrestleMania if they go there.
Super.
Are we going to have 2 WrestleManias?
Something to that version. Now let's come to the Saudi Arabia part. The biggest obstacle, in my opinion, for the Saudi thing, which just simply boils down to they don't sell tickets, right? Like, all their shows are bought.
Yeah, all their shows are bought. We see that all the time with indie shows around here. You get a bought show, you get this, you get that, and then they don't worry about selling tickets. But is it going to be a big enough deal for Saudi just to give away? I mean, WrestleMania tickets are expensive, so they're going to pay for the event, all the credits and everything they get, probably waive taxes on them, and then they're not going to be able to sell tickets. So Saudi Arabia is going to have to come back and compensate for all that lost income. I don't see that. I think you're right.
Look, and that's just it. We don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I probably should have. But what revenue did they generate, for Hall of Fame, because think about that. The SmackDown, the Raw, then the 2 nights of tickets. Is Saudi Arabia ready? Is the Saudi group ready to cut a check that's big enough to compensate for that entire, 4 or 5, the NXT, they probably leave here and they just do it here. They don't take NXT. They do it out of Performance Center and do that.
What if they did Mania in 2 cities? One night, Saturday in one city, Sunday in another. Is that something you think could happen?
No, I just think because they do they try to do the invading the entire town, like the fans come in one big flu. But by the way, that also is probably the second piece of I think the Saudi has a problem with. This isn't political, and we're not going to go political, but I'm just saying I don't know how many people are jumping on planes and because let's say they could sell tickets. How many people are going to jump on planes and fly to Saudi Arabia to do all the events? It's not going to be many. How much
does that even cost?
I have no idea. So that's a big issue there. But I just think they don't sell tickets. So does the Saudi government buy all of those events, all of those tickets, and just completely give them away for SmackDown, for both nights of WrestleMania, for because they do the NXT pay-per-view typically on one of those.
The next pay-per-view is Saturday, typically before the Saturday night.
Do they leave that back?
The Raw. The Raw to me is must-see TV. After that,
and is it going to be live there, and then it's going to be at like God knows what time? Because remember, it's in the middle of the afternoon here.
Oh, what time would WrestleMania be?
It'd be the same. By the way, listen, time difference. Okay, I'm on board. I ain't arguing with that, because if you're talking about I get WrestleMania at noon, I'm like, I'm in. Give me 4 hours and I'm done by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Sign me up. I'm in. But I think the bigger issue with Saudi is the simple fact of I just don't think that there's the way they're not giving up that money, especially with everything that's that we've heard rumors of this week. So I think everything comes back to Vegas. If Vegas is giving them the best deal, here's where I think Vegas is right now. Vegas is
bargaining chip.
Yeah, caught myself. Almost said a bad comparison. I would have caught so much flack for that one. All right, I'm going to say it. Here you go. Vegas right now is the girlfriend that you keep while you're like, I'm still looking, but I'm not going to break up with her for now. I'm going to, but if something comes along better, maybe. That's what Vegas is right now. Vegas is such a great deal for them. Vegas is probably where they should just commit and stay. But they're just not. I think if somebody else comes along, is there a city in the U.S. that you like? Does Philly get? Because there was rumor like, hey, Philly might be aggressive and get back into it.
Atlanta's not going to pay you more than Las Vegas.
No,
I'm sorry. Los Angeles probably still not more than Vegas. New York, maybe. But it's a site feast thing. I mean, it's Madison Square Garden. Is Madison Square Garden going to come off the money?
I just can't wait to see it. They'll never. By the way, for the record, we will never see a WrestleMania in an arena again. Hold on, backpedal up. If we see a WrestleMania in an arena, they're in a bad place. Because they're used at this point to putting 40, 50, 60, 70,000, in stadiums. They're not going back to 15, 16, 18,000 or whatever in arenas. If they do, WWE is in a bad financial place, in my opinion.
Well, would they be bought back by Vince McMahon, though?
If they got to that position, they may be in a bad. But look, they're not there now, and we both are aware of that they're not there now. But that did come up in the past week. Look, I don't know. Look, Jonathan Coachman has been putting out a lot of stuff out there, and I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent, but he's put out some takes out over the last few weeks that have been pretty contrary.
I watched some of his stuff today because he said some stuff I needed for the rest of the show, but I don't like him. And he's got a podcast with Russo, who also I don't like, but I'm starting to use his material more and more as like references.
I've always thought Coach was fine. I don't have any issues. I've never had any issues, obviously. Don't know him personally, so how could I? He was a sports guy, so he was a pretty legit sports journalist. He was an ESPN guy. Not that ESPN is sports journalism anymore, but that's a different conversation. Look, they come out and said that, look, there's a possibility of Vince buying back to WWE. He wants to buy it back. That's what he would want. And everybody immediately, and we had this conversation in the car, so now we're just going to have it on the air, where it was like, hey, everybody's saying, like, nope, it's never going to happen. It's not possible, whatever. And I was like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. But with Vince McMahon, I have learned, like, hey, we don't ever say never.
We just assume he's going to live forever too. You got to forget. You got to remember that. I can't. He's more than like my mother. I never see either one of them dying. But you had a very solid financial plan on how he would do that based on stock, ownership, a buyout, a corporate buyout.
Correct, because the natural assumption is TKO would never sell it back to him. Like, that was the reaction, right? And then, it was like, well, technically, people forget that it's a publicly traded company, and that if a big enough offer comes on the table that actually is the actual best thing for the shareholders, they actually have to. They have a fiduciary responsibility to actually present the sale, because it's not just for them to say no, because then they're not doing the best thing for their shareholders. So, but the question is, how big is that number? Like, what is the number that it becomes?
Where's the money coming from?
So, obviously, everybody says, look, he's not selling it for what he got for it. Like, they're not going to sell it back to him for what he paid, the whole trade, what he got for it. Now, again, personal opinions aside, all of those, we're trying to take politics out of it. The Saudi group was in the running. Remember when this thing happened, when this sale went through, their name was just constantly being thrown out there about buying it.
And they went into mixed martial arts with the boxing thing. I mean, the boxing, I'll say it all as mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
But they want a combat sports program. I don't know how. I mean, I don't mean to shit on your idea that Vince could buy it back. I just can't see the shareholders and the board agreeing to this, though. Even if it is the better financial decision, I just don't see. And where's Hunter? I don't think Hunter has a say in a lot of things anymore. Regardless of what we believe as wrestling fans, and we think Hunter's in charge of things and Hunter's going to take care of us, I don't see him being in charge of things anymore. So maybe The Rock backs him.
I don't know that any. Here's if he we kind of go back and forth, right? It's like, so if Vince gets the sack, because he has a great relationship with him, and I think that's the part that people forget. A lot of people forget that he has a good relationship with them. I think he's just he would get it back out of spite. He would do everything out, and he would run it and do what he wanted to do. I just 100% believe that, and you're right. Is Hunter out? Probably so at that point. Who knows? But if The Rock and the Triple H are having a power struggle, does he side with Hunter? Does he side with The Rock? I mean, Because here's the thing. Rock ain't coming back. Look, Rock can't be bothered to show up at WrestleMania, much less come back to run the day-to-day operations.
No.
So
not at
you
all.
see where I'm at? So that's kind of where I'm
it's
like.
Corporate wrestling. And I hate to keep saying that. It's corporate wrestling, and corporations make decisions that we're not happy with sometimes.
Corporate wrestling, Jeff Jarrett on his show basically outright said, corporate wrestling doesn't work. And obviously you're talking about the big news for the week. R-Truth is being released after 17 years, essentially, in this last run that he has. And, by the way, Carlito too. But R-Truth is the one.
Sarah Logan.
Yeah.
They're not getting released. They're not getting released. They're just not renewing them.
So let's get into that a little bit. R-Truth used the word release in his tweet. So I'm going to ask you point blank, and I don't know if I even told you this was coming. Is he partially to blame for a little bit of the pushback by saying that this was a release?
He probably phrased it incorrectly, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Jonathan Coachman said that he was offered a deal that's much less pay deal, or he could leave. Mark Henry said that he was offered the same deal when he was wrestling, and they were going to give him a back end payoff, which he said he never got. So these guys are coming in, and I think this is a cycle. It's a cycle like in a lot of companies that are too top heavy right now. And believe it or not, WWE sees, as a TKO sees WWE as too top heavy. If they're making these wonderful NXT talents, if they're building these superstars organically all the way down from an NLL program through Evolve, through LFG and all that. Why do they need to retain these people? So let's give them a salary pay cut and pay them more. Because, R-Truth has been at 17 years on this run. He gets they get a raise, I guess, periodically based on their performance. So he would be a higher paid talent, regardless of anything. And do like corporations, do they come in, they downsize certain things to cut costs? Is there like a quarterly? Aren't we due for the mid-year report or something to the stockholders? Do they have to show they've cut costs on some stuff?
They just got to show they're profitable. That's their big thing. And it's I think here's the thing that I heard. You know me, I'm like, this is what I heard, and I actually believe the person that told me this. If you're 45 or older, just keep looking over your shoulder.
Dude, I'm 52.
If you're 45,
I can't find a job to save my life. I have applied for 200 jobs and hardly spoke to anyone about them. When you're old,
if this is exact words I was told, if you're 45 and you can't show like a massive ROI, they can get somebody that they can pull a Carmelo Hayes up. They can pull. Now, I think there's always going to be the exceptions. You're always going to have. I think they see the value. And look, here's the crazy thing is, this is corporate value. This is corporate. This is where the Vince thing comes in. Like, we made the argument. Vince would have never let R-Truth go.
No, he made he made Vince laugh. I mean, he dated back all the way to the Attitude Era.
Did you ever think we're sitting here having an argument that Vince McMahon would have been, in this scenario, Vince McMahon is the better person to be running it than potentially the TKO look? Because he's not making some of these.
Did TKO not know what this would do? Did they do no research to see what it would cost to do this? I mean, the fans have went nuts. There were signs at Raw. There were chants. Wrestlers acknowledged it. But I'm just so conflicted on this, because if they offered him an amount of money and he looked at his value to do a Matt Cardona and work indies, or he looked at his value to go to AEW, or he looked at his value to go to TNA, did he think he can make more money than that going and trying something somewhere else? Maybe it's a contract negotiation. Maybe they let him go for a little while and bring him back on the Legends deal. Didn't they let Braun Strowman go and then turned around and rewrote his contract to do that television show, a cooking show or whatever?
I think where we sit is, I put a post up about, because I think it always, without fail, we always react immediately and we don't have all the facts. So I kind of wanted to wait and see. Like, the part about R-Truth, hey, they offered him a pay cut. Look, I don't like it. I didn't say I like it. This is 100% one of those two things can be true, right? Like, I don't like it. But at the same time, it's like, hey, we're not releasing you. Your contract's up. We don't see making numbers up. Don't know what the numbers were. If he was making $400,000 a year, let's say, I have no clue. And they came back and said, hey, we see you as a 225 guy. We'll keep you. You see what I mean?
But you don't turn as much as, say, Roman Reigns does. You're the number one merch seller, though. They're still selling his shirt on WWE.com as of earlier today, $45, and it's got a most popular icon next to it. Seriously?
Can I throw a weird one in here? Because I know everybody. We're gonna get into some of the wacky theories and what we should happen if it's true. What if he shows up on SmackDown? Like, John Cena's on SmackDown.
Childhood hero.
He just had the match at Saturday Night Main Event with John Cena.
I mean, who hit him harder in the crotch, John Cena or TKO?
Look, by the way, I do think he legit was released. I do. But my argument is, can we get through one TV cycle and go
yeah,
let's make sure this is legit?
I was holding off because of Raw. I was like, maybe he'll be on Raw and think he's on SmackDown. Or maybe he's going to think it was June 1st and not April 1st.
Yeah.
Or maybe we'll get him on SmackDown.
What if Ron Killing shows up on SmackDown? What if R-Truth was released? Okay, quick, whatever. So there's that's part of it. But like my thing was, if he's offered everybody's like, oh, at least give him a Legends deal. How about we let it digest to the fact that what if he needs a minute? Like, is there a window that you have to be like, you have to be gone 30 days before they can offer you a Legends deal to get outside of your, like, to give you the window to open up and all? I mean, there's a million things as far as this,
Does a release and a not renewing your contract have the same waiting period? Where you got a 90-day non-compete if they just don't renew your contract? Are you're since you're not under contract? I don't know how those things are structured. I mean, his contract was structured God knows how long ago. I remember so much. I remember the 24/7 championship. I remember little Jimmy.
Yeah, he gave us the value. Like, we think that. But TKO might not see him as a 400, 600. Again, have no clue what his salary was. But whatever it was at the time, if they don't see him as that value, and here's the thing, he may look at himself and say, I'm more than a $225,000 value. I can make more somewhere else. Now, I would say good luck with that because the options are limited. But there's options. Option number one, when I say the option number one, here's the other part. What if that option's TNA, not the other one? Tommy Dreamer put it on social media like, hit me up. Everybody forgets that Ron Killings was an NWA World Champion in TNA.
Yes.
It's been forever, but he was a guy there.
I heard so many things. I read through his history. He started here in Georgia, basically, after going with one of the Crockett's to some NWA stuff. He was the first black NWA champion, Nick.
And
think about that.
Yes, he was like the first, and especially specifically in the modern era. Ron Simmons was the WCW champion, so that was kind of a little bit of a different thing, but kind of like yes. The other thing was I made the joke of, did you hear? Listen, two things went away. Let's use this for two purposes. Number one, we're not going to discuss this one in length, but I thought it was hilarious that Bully Ray said John Cena should come out on SmackDown on Friday and say, I got R-Truth fired. I told you I was ruining wrestling, and you know what? I beat him, and I got rid of him. Boo. The boos will just rain down.
I never thought I'd like fantasy booking until listening to Bubba do this. I mean, it was...
Yeah. Part two of that same is... what if he shows up at TNA or AEW? I prefer the TNA because there's probably a little more leeway to work with because of the working relationship they have. What if he shows up and he's just like, man, I can't find catering. Whatever. And he just starts acting like he doesn't even realize he's not in WWE anymore. Like he acts like he's in WWE.
Well, I found out something today about TNA that I did not know. I had the TNA network when it was on YouTube, and I'd forgotten where to find it. I was looking around today. TNA streams on TNA Plus. Their technology and ecosystem they use for that, Nick? Endeavor Streaming.
Mm-hmm.
You know who owns Endeavor Streaming? Endeavor. So we got our double. WB Endeavor cannot get a non-compete. Or not a non-compete, a monopoly clause again, when they're giving TNA what they need or selling TNA what they need to be on their platform. TNA could not stream without Endeavor. Maybe there's a plot in here. Maybe more people are going to shift. I don't know, man. I don't get it.
Now, there's always the other big option is AEW. Is Tony Khan ready to stroke the check and get, Ron Killings in there? And how about and that was the other part of the booking that cracked me up. What if he walks into Tony Khan's office and he's like, Nick Khan. He's like, I'm Tony Khan, not Nick Khan. And it's like, oh, y'all look alike. Y'all must be cousins. Stuff like that, or like, and just playing completely like same exact thing. But the reason I bring them up is I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation this week with you about with all of the corporate decisions that have been made as of late with WWE, I think they're in a weird spot. I think they're in a very vulnerable spot right now. Just my opinion. People were not happy at WrestleMania. People are clearly not happy about the R-Truth thing. People are kind of grumbling about what's the deal with WrestleMania? Why are you moving and why is everything changing? One thing is fine. Two things is starting to be an issue. 3 and 4 and 5 things start to become a real problem where people, what do we tell some of the local promotions when we have conversations? Brand confidence. All right, if people start getting agitated with you about every little thing, hey, you want to know something? This is how AEW got into a problem. People lost confidence in the brand. Guess what AEW is doing right now? They are restoring the confidence in their brand.
Yes, they have been resurgent.
The numbers are creeping up. Ticket sales are good. Shows are, for whatever this is worth, critically are doing well. So they're in a very opportunistic moment that they have got to take advantage of. By the way, it's also kind of what we talked about last week. I think that's why, yes, I do think WWE is trying to just chop them off at the knees with all of this counter programming, just bombarding them constantly. Every time they run a big show, throwing multiple shows at them and just over and over and over and over and over.
And if they're streaming their closest competition, TNA, is getting help from WWE on their streaming service somehow. It's the same company, not WWE. So does AEW need to watch TNA or does AEW need to watch WWE? Or does AEW just need to watch itself and keep doing what it's doing right?
If it were me, here's just my take. If I were them, I would focus on my product. I would talk about how good WWE is. If you're asked a question about it in a press conference, don't crap on them. Tell them how great they are, because guess what? If you catch a great person or a great company, that means you did really well. If you keep putting them down and you catch them, you catch at a company that you put. Same way we talk about, hey, wrestlers, even when you're against each other, you should always talk about how great a competitor your opponent is, babyface or heel, because then when you win, you beat somebody. You didn't beat nobody. Kind of the same concept when you talk about companies, if you're competition. The problem that I have with this is I do think they're in a great position to make a run for them. But TNA is closer to AEW than AEW is to WWE by miles. So I would say focus on yourself, and that would be my key thing. But if you had to look at somebody and kind of pay attention to what somebody else is doing, I think you probably need to look over your shoulder a little bit at TNA more than you need to be looking up at WWE chasing, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. It makes perfect sense. If TNA were to get a TV deal, how would that figure into the whole thing? I mean, right now, wrestling's hot. People want to watch it on television. If you have to pay $10 a month to stream TNA and they're doing good, that's a big deal. You know, if people are not watching something on television, or they're actually adding some, they're watching free wrestling on television, but then they're paying $10 more just to get another promotion. I kind of like the TNA deal. Get on television. I think they'll be in a strong spot, especially with Ron Killings.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe that's something that falls into their lap. By the way, Ron Killings has released an album apparently, or he is releasing an album.
He's released multiple
lots
albums.
Of stuff. Yeah. No, I'm saying he's got like a new one coming.
Oh,
is what? So look, I think there's a lot. Here was the unpopular take. He had a 17-year run.
Yeah.
I'm not, again, two things can be true. I'm not happy that he's gone by any stretch. I wish he was still there. He was one of the most entertaining characters on the show. Absolutely, without a doubt. But wrestling has always been an occupation, career, where it's been you're in there for a couple years and you might go away for a year or so and then you're back in. You know, WWE's going to like in, out, use you, let you go, bring you back. It's always been... He has been blessed with 17 years to have a run for 17 years. Now, again, I wish he was still there for another 17. But like, I think you, on the other hand, have to look at the positives, and I bet he does. After the sting is over a little bit about being not renewed, not released, not renewed. If that were true, here's the other thing. If that is actually accurate, what a run, man! Tip your cap to the dude. That's a hell of a run.
I'm pulling all my strings together here, Nick. I agree with you 100%. It's a hell of a run. But he was in a group called the 3 Live Crew with Conan and Road Dogg. Do you think he could be going to AAA as like somebody to help the process?
Dude, I could make the same case for TNA. Is he going over there to help them with character development and be a coach and a trainer for like, hey, can anybody teach you how to be a team player, do what you're asked for, and be a character and be a team? Because like, everybody's talking about they're putting on great matches, but if they need to work on their character work, that's a great guy to have over there. Now, he may not have any interest in that, but I think it's a good landing place. Because here's, by the way, this actually happens. There will come a day when people are ready to hang it up and retire that they're like, there's a number that gets me off of the couch to go back to wrestling. And maybe his number was 400,000 or whatever it was per year. Again, I'm making numbers up.
Was this last run a gift to him?
That was the other thing I wanted to ask. Did John Cena just say, hey, if this is it, if everybody knew it was coming, did John say like, hey, I want to give him his last, was this quietly his last match?
Well, he had another match on Raw, SmackDown with JC Mateo. But still, that was your big run. That was your big pop working with Cena on Saturday night's main event. I don't know if I'm able to let this topic go. I mean, it's
well, we're going to have to, because we got a couple other things we got to get into. But right here, before we get into it, I do want to drop in the big announcement. I told you we would tease it. We'd do it somewhere in the middle. We're going to get to Money in the Bank and Worlds Collide just like real quick. Got a little preview before we go out of here. But the big news is, so quietly, if you've been a listener for a while, we haven't actually been on a podcast feed, Spotify, Apple, Amazon podcast, any of that since August of last year. It was a decision we made to pull and not do those anymore. But listen, if there's one thing I'm flexible, and I'll listen. Had a bunch of people emailing, bunch of people asking, say, hey, are you guys ever going to go back to the podcast platforms? And I said, no. It's almost been a year, dude. And 10 months later, I'm like, well, 9 months, a little over 9 months later, I'm like, fine, yes. So over the last couple weeks, I quietly set the feeds up, just let them run, and said, I want to make sure they work before we kind of put it out there publicly. But last week, I put both episodes on our original feed, and I wanted to be clear with that, because here's the thing. If you were an original subscriber to the original feed, I had a few people message me, go like, hey, man, are you back on Spotify? I was like, no, why? We are on Spotify. I'm literally going to the big three: Amazon Podcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Just the big three. That's it. That's the only thing. Now, if somebody distributes that thing out to somebody else, that's fine. But those three we are on. And Myron, I wanted to make it easy to find our podcast for the new listeners. If you go into Apple Podcast, Spotify, or Amazon Music Podcast, if you had to guess how you would search for us on it, what would you type if you just had to guess off the top of your head? What would you think it would be?
Maybe Tapped Out Pod?
That is correct. I have renamed the feed Tapped Out Pod. If you type Tapped Out Pod, one word, one long word, we're there. You can find us again on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon Music's podcast.
Dude, I put Tapped Out Pod into Amazon on my desktop where I was looking at speaker parts. And it pulled us right up there too. It went from Amazon merchandise over to the podcast feed. So easy.
Yeah. So we are back on the podcast platforms. Just wanted to make that announcement that we are going forward. They will be there, weekly, Yeah, just the big three is the only ones I'm advertising. If they distribute it somewhere else, that's awesome. But I think pretty much Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts, if we're on those, we're good.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I do look better on the radio.
1,000%. And that's what I've told people. Like, oh, obviously we're not leaving YouTube now. We're not leaving YouTube or anything like that. We're all set. We're still on the YouTube podcast, all that, YouTube music, all that kind of stuff. But we just wanted to make that announcement before we jumped into the big stuff of the week. Obviously, is this weekend, Money in the Bank.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not excited, are you? You're not hooked.
Well, no, I the big matches I'm totally hooked on. Big matches I'm totally hooked on. The thing I want to see is Jacob Fatu and Dominic Cruz. That's a good thing right there. Is Solo going to get what's going to happen to Solo in this match?
I don't know. See, that's the problem. Usually going into them, I'm like, all right, I got a pretty good feel. I want to ask you a hot take. I saw something today that I hadn't really thought of. Look, word's out that, viewership on Netflix is down really bad. And we're not getting into that topic, but I wanted to ask you, somebody put up a post that a few years ago, we were in a run, like 2019, 20, maybe somewhere, whatever. They were like, dude, Raw was at one of its lowest viewerships of all time, blah, blah, blah. Who was the top of the food chain at the company at that time? Seth Rollins.
Oh.
They're like, Raw is at one of its lowest peaks, as far as the Netflix era. It's not doing real well, blah, blah, blah. Who's the top of the food chain as far as the star, one of the stars on Raw? Seth Rollins. The show kind of centers around him, whether we like it or not, because he's in the Think Punk kind of, quasi tied into it. Jay, they're all tangled up at the top. And Seth Rollins, and they're like, did we not learn then that Seth Rollins is not, like, I have always said that Seth Rollins is a 1B guy, not a 1A guy.
Yeah.
And to be blunt, he might be a 2.
Braun Breaker, I think, has more potential than Seth Rollins did. Bronson Reed is, I don't know why. And I keep hearing people complaining, why is Bronson Reed with Seth Rollins? Because Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins had a big feud just a little while ago where Bronson Reed hurt him. And is that Paul Heyman helping him? Is getting us to, I don't know. The one thing that Paul Heyman is with him, they didn't have that during the initial run. But they're clearly wanting to get that AAA audience more because they put 3 luchadors in the men's match. Penta, Andrade, and if you can call on El Grande Americano on that show. I don't know where they're going right now, Nick.
Look, Seth Rollins is winning this match. I don't know why we're even shocked by this. Seth Rollins is winning this match. Because then he's going to have a briefcase that he can cash in at any time.
I need drama.
With both of his henchmen kind of constantly running, riding shotgun with him. And so I'm just like that. I'm probably wrong. 100% could be wrong. That just jumps off the page that nobody else on that entire thing screams they're winning.
What I would really like, if I can run home from Shindig on Saturday night and watch, if I had to pick one match, I would pick the women's match. If I had to pick a second match, I pitched the men's match. The other 2 matches really don't interest me at all. How much Becky Lynch can they use to put Lyra Valkyria over? And they've done less of the feather stuff like I've been suggesting. I guess they listen. But I'm not interested in seeing that again. It's going to be a good wrestling match, but I don't watch for good wrestling matches. And the tag team matches, I guess, to sort things, to move things along.
Here's the conspiracy theory that I saved that I wanted to throw at you while we were recording. Do you know why this doesn't make any sense?
Why is that?
Because it wasn't supposed to be Logan Paul. It was supposed to be Travis Scott. Because tell me if Travis Scott's in that spot, doesn't it make way more sense?
Yeah. Yeah, he was the one that slapped Cody Rhodes and busted his eardrum.
He's the one who cost him the title at WrestleMania. He's the one that was tied in with the whole Rock thing, whatever. Look, I'm not. This is total rumor in you. I just wanted to throw it out there. Rumor was he had a ring. He was supposed to be training. He was supposed to be in this match, and supposedly has backed out at the he wasn't ready, and that's why everything seems slapped together because they just threw in Logan Paul into the mix because he's a star. It would make whatever, and we'll figure it out afterwards or whatever. And this again. John Cena's heel run almost feels like it's been cut off at the knees at every turn.
Yeah.
Like if Rock was supposed to be there, backs out, so the WrestleMania thing doesn't make sense. Then we're trying to tread water until we figure something out. Then Travis Scott backs out at the last minute. It's supposed to be because that match makes sense. To me, it makes sense. I don't necessarily like it. And I'm not even saying it's Jey Uso as Cody's partner. It could have been somebody else. But I do like the Jey Uso going like, hey, okay, whatever. Probably reality, it probably is somebody else. The only reason Jey Uso's in the match is because it's Logan Paul, and they just had the thing at Saturday Night Main Event.
Yeah, and I love the two things I love. I love the Gunther coming out and talking to Jay about he's stretched too thin and being involved and stuff. And we went back and figured out how many feuds he was in right now. And it was like half of the heels in WWE are feuding with Jey Uso. Yeah. And I like the John Cena bringing Logan Paul as a YouTuber to destroy the wrestling thing. Is that it? Is there a bigger thing? Is there something big coming out of this?
I will say I do like this in general. You brought up the whole like Jey Uso feuding with anybody. On Raw, CM Punk mentions John Cena. He mentions Jey Uso. They're all talking like it's. I'm like, okay, I like the fact that they're kind of all like, that guy's a champion. That guy's a champion. We're kind of all everybody's gunning for the champion. It's not like one guy and everybody else is just forgotten about. They're like, no, we want to be champion too. Like they're all figuring it out. So that part, I do like that. I am a fan of that piece. But I think the glaring hole that keeps coming back is if this is Travis Scott, this match makes 100% more sense.
Yeah.
And so like I told somebody, I'm not saying that report's true, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. I mean, I don't have a legitimate argument against it being Travis Scott and making more sense. Because after what that whole thing he did with just, with Cody, yes. It would make John Cena a bigger heel to be with the guy that hurt Cody.
Well, we're going to ruin wrestling. We're going to have another main event with Logan Paul. Look, for all the grief that Logan Paul gets, I'm kind of over the fact that like he's not a wrestler. Like, nah, he kind of is at this point.
No, he's a wrestler. He's exceeded Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee was the guy that was not a wrestler, and he was a wrestler. Bad Bunny was the guy that wasn't a wrestler, and he was a wrestler. But Logan Paul is the epitome of guys who have come in and got this stuff together. They've trained. They've done well. I really don't like him, but he's a heel, so it's part of his job to make me not like him. So.
Right. He's doing his job effective, so hopefully they'll make something out of this. But I'm just curious to see where they go in the tag match. I mean, obviously we got to get back to Cody and John, one-on-one. Maybe that's where we're going. I'm just kind of, I've been really, here's the thing. We talk about being disappointed with WrestleMania and the WrestleMania as far as the location and then the truth being fired. Like overall, here was a hot take that somebody said on a podcast. And I want to get your take on it before we move on to Worlds Collide. Somebody said, for years, the fans screamed to turn John Cena. Right? Maybe the reason Vince never turned him is because he knew this is what was going to happen. That it was not going to work. You say you want it, but he was smart enough to know they say they want it, but they don't. And you know what? He had evidence to prove that was the case. When Hulk Hogan returned as the NWO, he was the bad guy. What did those fans do?
Cheered for him.
I bet you had they turned John back in the day, all those people that were hating on him and that wanted him to be a heel, he would have just got cheered. Or especially in this run where they want nothing. When we know this is it, they want to love him and they want to cheer him, and they're just not buying it.
I got my Funko. Do you see it?
Yeah. I saw your video. Yeah, I saw it. But does that make sense? Like, I think maybe Vince knew. They say they want it, but they don't. Maybe that's why we never got the John Cena heel turn. And this is proof that he was right. Yes, guys, I cannot believe in this episode twice we have said that Vince probably was right. He wouldn't have fired R-Truth, and he probably was right in not flipping John Cena heel. Yeah. Let's move on before we throw up in our mouths. WWE Worlds Collide. Look, we are openly honest. I tell you, I have watched AAA from afar, and I mean far. Just knowing, Sam Adonis, Vikingo, friend of the show, QT Marshall was there with Satnam and, Jeff Jarrett, obviously. So that kind of stuff kind of like had me at least paying attention. But I'm not delusional, and I'm not telling people, hey, I know who all these people are, and I've kept up with them or whatever. But I will tell you what I'm watching. I'm watching the show.
Yeah.
It has my attention. I think Vikingo versus Chad Gable has all the potential in the world to be just lights out.
Championship match. They just took the belt off Alberto Del Rio, El Patreon, or I don't know if that's a brand of tequila or what. But seriously, they get Alberto out of the way to get Vikingo in here to give him something special. I like that. Super psyched about the women's tag match. Lola Vice hasn't gotten enough credit over the years. She's extremely talented. And then the NXT and North American Championship. Ethan Page, Ray Phoenix, Javon Evans, and Laredo Kid. I can't tell you anything about Laredo Kid, but I know those other three guys can go. And go. I probably will have to study on how they name wrestlers like that are juniors and Dr. Wagner and that stuff. I'm not quite sure I get all that.
So I've kind of kept up with that a little bit. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's their son. It just means it's the second one. Does that make sense?
Since their mask, I can see that.
Yeah, like Rey Mysterio Jr. is not Rey Mysterio's son. I think it was his nephew or something like that. But he's the second Rey Mysterio, so he's junior. It's kind of, it's a culture thing. And listen, I've joked about the more this kind of stuff starts to happen, I should bring Vari Morales, friend of the show, on and maybe have him help me catch up on some of the AAA stuff. I am, he's obviously going to be way more knowledgeable than we are. But look, I mean. I thought it unique because it was, the NXT title's going to be on the show. So there's a little bit of crossover there. A lot of the WWE talents all mixed in.
If nobody is happy with WWE right now, though, how are they going to rate this show? This show is going to be prone to so much criticism from every single angle. I just can't wait to hear how the reviews of this show will probably be crazier than the show.
My take of you've got a weekend, like you're going to have Worlds Collide and you're going to have Money in the Bank. I think this show is going to be closer to attracting an AEW crowd.
Yes. The
more diehard, like, hey, we like the in-ring stuff. That's what this show's for. Money in the Bank's to draw the other crowd. And I think eventually that's what we're going to end up seeing happen more often than not.
Yeah.
The cross-programming that we teased and we talk about all the time, as of late, I think you're going to have multitude. They're going to just buckshot shows across the board, and you're like, diehard wrestling fans, wrestling show, like Great American Bash, diehard, going to be geared more to your diehard wrestling fans because they're going to put some best matches on that show. They're going to have Saturday Night Main Event. That's the casual fan show. Women's wrestling, boom, we're going to give you Evolution over here. Sometimes that won't be that. It'll be maybe a AAA WWE show. I think they're just going to combat them at all the different levels. That's what I think they're trying to accomplish.
But what if the reason they're not finalizing WrestleMania is because they're going to wait and see when Tony Khan's going to run something and jam WrestleMania in on top of it?
No, I don't think. Not April. If it's in April, I don't think there's anything huge that's going to be there that he. Yeah, I don't think so. Now, would I be stunned? No. But here's the thing. I would be. Here's why. Great point was brought up about the counter programming. I heard it this past week, and I was like, you know what? I guess I really hadn't. I didn't think about that a ton. But like sometimes on certain events, All In, I think they did do Saturday Night Main Event after the fact. But some cases, when they do some of the smaller pay-per-views, if there's a Saturday Night Main Event that's on there, I was because Bischoff brought it up. It was a great point. They have to know, like, NBC needs that date 6-8 months out. Like, they can't do, like, 2 months before, like, hey, can we run that Saturday? They're like, no, we have contractual obligations to somebody else in that slot already. So the argument could have been like, oh, they wouldn't have known. Well, yeah, they announced All In last year. It was a year ago. So they would know, when that date was ahead of time. So they probably intentionally did do this Saturday Night Main Event in general, but like the last one we just had when they're like, oh, we're putting it up, no, not so much. Anyway, back to Worlds Collide. I'm jacked. I think it's got. I want to see it just to see how. I want to see the presentation. Yes. Although I'm hearing a rumor, and this is not factual. This is a question I've heard. I've heard something like this deal actually is not finalized until like October. That they do have outs, whatever. But
I have seen so much on this and done so much research into this deal, and I can tell you, I don't know any more than you do about it. Okay, not at all.
Yeah. Listen, if we did find something out, there is a scoop, Myron. It would obviously be over on our patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Look, we were right. There's a whole chunk of show notes about a topic that we didn't get to. It's a top 10 list of all things that we didn't get to. It will be in the show notes. Yeah, I was real happy with it. I was super cool. I was like, hey, man, it's awesome. We didn't get to it. So if you want to check it out, it was a should we tell them what it is, Myron, or no?
It was for Sioux Falls City.
Basically, yes. It was the top. It was just the top 10 funniest R-Truth moments while he was in the WWE. It's again top 10 list we put together. I thought it was awesome. It's there in the show notes for your Patreon, $1 level or more. Boom, that's there for you to go through. By the way, send your hate mail to tappedoutpod@gmail.com. I'm kidding. So if there's something that's not on the list that you like, send it. Comment it right there on the show notes. It's okay. You can comment on the Patreon page. Again, tappedoutpod. tappedoutpod@gmail.com, easy for me to say, and of course patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Man, that's a lot of stuff to get through, and I think we did a pretty good job in getting it in under an hour.
Where did you put the podcast feeds again? What was that listed under?
Tapped Out Pod. You go to Spotify, Apple Podcast, or even Amazon Music's podcast, and just put in Tapped Out Pod, and the podcast will pull up. That is the original new feed for the podcast. All the episodes will be there. It's just the two main ones for now going forward. I don't know that I'm going to do interviews or anything on there. I might. I'm flexible, man. We're adjusting on the fly. That's kind of what we do. We just figure stuff out as we go. We have for almost 9 years now. We just figure it out as we go along. And it seems to work out in the long run. So we will see. Well, man, that's all I've got this week. You got anything else before we get out of here today, man?
No, just feeling a little husky.
That's right, man. So, if that's all you've got, man, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.